Good afternoon, colleagues. This is Rob Ward from Centre for Recording Achievement here in slightly rainy Wigan, I have to say. And welcome to this webinar. Particular welcome to Ken Swinton from the University of Abertay, who's going to lead the session. I just want to give apologies on behalf of Carol Maxwell, who's not able to be with us today at very short notice. But Ken has bravely, foolishly, fearlessly, take whichever word you want, said he was happy to run it, given that we got such a good range of colleagues signed up. Just to set the scene, really, this came out of a workshop, a very successful workshop that colleagues from Abertay ran at our residential seminar in Sheffield in December, and really reflecting on and presenting the variety of practice at Abertay that was developing around digital badges, around electronic portfolios, and around the here, and the sort of potential for connectivity in support of the common good. So I'm going to hand on to Ken in a moment, and he's going to walk us through some of their experience, both in a showcasing way, I guess, but also as a basis for comment and chat later on. And as we proceed, I'm going to suggest a couple of things, really. One is that we will mute the microphones of all of you because it's quite disconcerting given the technology picks up all sorts of things, and those in open plan offices, we can hear all the conversations going on around very often. And the other thing is to encourage you to write things in the chat box, and you should have the chat box on your screen now. Issues you want to come back to, queries you want to raise, points you want to make, anything you like in that chat box within reason, and I will keep an eye on it, and we'll have the opportunity to come back to some of the key points later before we get into a general discussion. So I hope that's reasonably clear. I'm going to mute my microphone. I'm going to disappear, and Ken may appear. On my computer, he seems to be sitting in a very dark room at the moment, so his camera is on. So I'm going to turn I can turn my camera off and my microphone off, and we'll see what happens when I do that. Thanks a lot.
Hi folks, I hope you can hear me, and I don't know what you can see on screen, but I've hopefully got the slides up for you. Okay, let me try and fix this then. You're the presenter, but you're not sharing the screen. Share. Is that working now?
Ken, that's fine. We can see your slides. Okay. We can't currently see you.
Right. Okay. I'll try and share the webcam again. See if that's working now. No, it was working 2 minutes ago, but it's not working now. Okay.
I'm just technology, children, and animals.
Just to introduce myself, I'm Ken Swinton, and I'm division leader for law. And we've been involved in a project with Open Badges with Carol Maxwell and her team now for over 3 years. So what I want to speak about today are our experiences with Open Badges. I'll say something about the extension of the scheme to our enterprise unit, who created an enterprise framework for the entire institution. The development of the Mozilla Badge Kit and here integration I can speak about, but please don't ask me any technical questions because that's Carol's side of things. So that's that, and then a little bit about integration and some sources toward the end. So let's try and move on. This is where I start doing a bit of bragging. We've been using ePortfolios using PebblePad for I think 5 or 6 years now. And one of the reasons for doing that was to encourage staff to give formative feedback throughout the program. And we've got Pebble used in 23, I think, of our 38 modules. That's really had an impact, and over the last 2 or 3 years, our NSS scores have been pretty spectacular, with most categories coming back in 100%. So on the screen now, you can see that we have our scores for the feedback sector of the NSS survey, and we're well ahead of the average in the Scottish Law Schools. In fact, we're the top of all the Scottish Law Schools. So there's a picture of me that Carol put on just in case the webcam that she gave me didn't work. Where we started with this project was through our ATLEF funding. So ATLEF is a fund that Abertay established and allows academics and others to apply for funding for projects in relation to teaching and learning enhancement. Most of them are technology driven, but not necessarily all are technology driven. So I got together with Carol, one of my colleagues in law, Fiona Grant, and our careers service, which is headed up by Mary Hole. So that's the team that was involved in the badges, and you'll see from the slide that we had in mind that we would use Mozilla, and I'll come back to why we chose Mozilla in due course. So this next series of slides, I'd take you through how we decided on badges in the first place. The first driver for this project was really the University Strategic Plan 2015 to 2020, and this requires all programs at the institution to have work-related opportunities. We started work in 2012-2013 with a view to introducing work placements. In law, the conventional wisdom is work placements are very difficult to obtain. So while we started developing a work placement program, which is now running successfully, we were concerned that that was not enough and that we would never quite secure enough places to give every student that opportunity. So we thought about other ways in which we might help students develop employability skills. The program itself is very strong on simulation throughout the modules from stage 1 to stage 4. This being Scotland, we have 4 stages. So one of the things that we wanted to do was enhance our students' skills as well as their knowledge and understanding of law. The qualification process in Scotland for law students is that they do their undergraduate degree, they move on to 1 year's postgraduate study, and then do a 2-year training contract. Our students were getting to assessment days, but they weren't making it past the assessment day stages in the numbers that we might have hoped. And the feedback that we got from 1 or 2 of the employers was that our students weren't able to articulate appropriate answers at assessment days for all the competence-based testing that was going on. So we wanted to have a means of ensuring that our students were better prepared for things like assessment days and questions that arise at interview as well. I spoke a little bit about the work placements earlier. We also decided at the same time to invest a significant proportion of staff resources, staff time, in developing clinical legal education through a number of projects. And we created 3 projects. One is an employment law clinic, which has now been running for 2 years with the Citizens Advice Bureau. The second is a justice project. The national organisation there collapsed shortly after we started this project, so we've been going it alone, and more recently in conjunction with Strathclyde University based in Glasgow. And it seeks to assist those who claim to be alleged victims of miscarriage of justice. And we had a third project, a student-led law clinic giving advice to other students, which hasn't been as successful. So it's in limbo at the moment. So of those projects then, we've got the CAB, we've got the Justice Project, we've got work placement modules, but the badges fit into that overall scenario. The model that we've used in our undergraduate program has been to develop reflective practice. We've been doing that for a number of years. Even before we had PebblePad, we were looking around for appropriate software to try and support what we were trying to achieve. So Pebble was just an ideal tool for the way that we operated. And since 2011, so that's over the past 5 years, the Law Society has been pushing through their guidelines the reflective practice model. So we're ahead of the curve in what the Law Society were trying to do by about 10 years. We use a lot of portfolio modules, and we've got Pebble, as I say, rolled out across the program. Abertay implemented the HEAR, the Higher Education Achievement Report, in session 14-15. And if you're familiar with the HEAR, you'll know that there are a variety of sections in it. The one that we have adopted means that in section 6.1, the university can recognize co-curricular activities, and in 6.2, students get to enter their own activities into there as well. So one of the key objectives about what we're trying to achieve is that students should have a rich 6.1 in their HEAR, and the badges fit into that whole process. So that's one of our key drivers, is to ensure that they have something to say in their HEAR when they get to interview as well. Okay, where do we go from there? Well, we go to badges. We were successful in our ATLEF bid. I think we were awarded £2,500, and we spent the first 6 to 9 months making sure that we were familiar with the literature. And what we wanted to do was bring together all these employability strands, both within the program, co-curricular, and even extracurricular activities that students might be undertaking, bring that together through badges and allow those badges to have a representation in the HEAR, and a link from the HEAR out to where those badges are actually displayed. When we started thinking about how we wanted to use badges, we recognized a couple of things. One was that they should recognize small amounts of effort that students had put in. So it's much smaller than a module, for example. But equally, it's not got to be trivial, and it's got to be worth having. So we looked at the Scottish Credit and Qualification Framework. So that's the system that applies across Scotland in relation to credit accumulation and transfer. And one SCQF point is equivalent to 10 hours of effort. So while there's no linkage with SCQF, and badges are always levelless anyway, we decided that we should take that benchmark of about 10 hours effort to be a suitable target for the award of a badge. And we also decided to group awards into various sectors of what we're interested in, and then have a group award for each of those. The next step was to create workbooks in PebblePad, and that took a bit of time. And someone's asking if badges can be accessed from anywhere. The answer is yes. We can now access them from anywhere, and students can link them to a LinkedIn account, a Facebook page, or whatever, and again they can be linked through the here. So that's how open these badges are. We produced a set of rules for administration of the scheme. It's nothing like assessment regulations. Yes, it's linked to PebblePad too, so most of the work's done in Pebble, the badges are awarded in Pebble, and it links to PebblePad. So we set up rules for which we would try to operate the scheme, and that is that we try and give students feedback within 2 working days, and we try and award badges within 10 working days of a submission. Students don't fail, they only ever don't get awarded the badges, and we try and encourage them to go ahead and develop what they're submitting to try and provide support for them so that badges are a development of what they're doing. Then we had to think about how we were going to get students to engage with the process. So we chose one module at each stage of the process and designated that as core. And we spoke to the module tutors. Fiona was the module tutor for first-year students, and the others were selected on the basis that they were technologically competent and could do this, and they had computer labs built into their modules as well. So we need space in a computer lab and time in a computer lab to allow students to do that. We held a launch event along with all our co-curricular projects, and we tend to repeat that each year. And the idea about the launch event is to get students enthused about the co-curricular projects that they can engage in as well. We approached the Law Society because we thought that this was very much in the area of reflective practice, and we asked 2 members of staff that we know quite well from the Education and Training Department at the Law Society if they would come on as external verifiers, and they both came on. One has been on maternity leave, I think, since she's been appointed, and hasn't actually had the opportunity to do anything, so we've relied on one member of staff from the Law Society, and at the end of a year he certainly produced a report to us about what he found easy, what he found difficult, and the bit that he found difficult was getting to grips with Pebble in the first place, but after that everything was straightforward. So when the Law Society come here and do talks, we ask them to speak about the badges and how this might help them evidence particular attributes that are being sought by most employers. So this gives you a screenshot of one of the workbooks that we've got, which is the Resilience Workbook. And we ask students to demonstrate resilience in a variety of ways. The one I think that's been most successful there is in relation to clients, and our external verifier commented that our students had been excellent at dealing with difficult clients and reflecting on the process and ensuring that there were professional values. So this is just an example of one of the workbooks that we've got, and you'll see the hexagonal badge which is designed to comply with the Mozilla standards at the end of the day. So that's the group badge that you're seeing on that screen. This second badge is leadership and influencing, because we're told that's important at assessment centres. and it's about working in groups. So, for example, our Justice project is entirely student-led, and the chair of those meetings alternates. So it's a difficult thing to do, to bring a group of students together, motivate them, and let them continue working on a case entirely by themselves, but with some background supervision if it's required. And these miscarriage of justice cases can take 2 or more years. Students may come and leave the project and not see any results for it. So providing leadership and support in that setting is really an interesting way to go. The next one is communication, and this communication is something that we focus on throughout our program. What we try and do is bring in external speakers, practitioners. We have family law practitioners, social workers, and so on. But part of the reason for doing so is so that students get to see different settings. They see how they react with clients. They see how you approach things with employers, with academic staff, and with their peer groups. So we get students to try and recognize the different voices that a successful practitioner requires to identify with. So it's about the reflective practice here. One of the other badges is social responsibility. And that is a direct response to something else that's in the university strategic plan. The university strategic plan has Abertay attributes. They used to be Abertay graduate attributes, but they're now Abertay attributes. There is the academic side, there is the professional side, but there is also a citizenship side. So what we're trying to do here is represent that citizenship side and demonstrate how students are good citizens in a variety of different ways. Part of it will be professional ethics, but there are other elements to that as well. So here you can see the first 4 group badges in the left-hand column, and then the individual badges that are awarded leading up to those group awards. So you can see we started with 16 and 4 group awards. It's just the scheme that we adopted. The original plan was for another 4 group awards and another 4 sub-badges. But for reasons I'll explain later, we haven't gone any further than that to date. So we chose to use Mozilla, Mozilla Badge Kit, as our literature review suggested that this was the most widely adopted system for open badges. And that was quite an interesting choice, I think, especially when we came to implement the system, because we'd already designed it around Mozilla. With Mozilla, we can then save things to the Mozilla Backpack, and one of the tasks in this lab at the beginning of every year for every stage is for the students who haven't already got a Mozilla Backpack to register with Mozilla and create their backpack so that we can push the badges onto their backpacks. There's a little, when we had these open day events, there's been a little resistance to the idea of badges and backpacks, and some students have formed the view that this is perhaps a little juvenile, but it's not going to attract all students. It's something that will attract some students, and I quite like the idea of some competition in the system so that we can see what students do, and they can work in groups and push one another on. So what we've then got to do is we've got to get students to link their Mozilla Backpack to their e-portfolio in PebblePad, and the Highland Cow lets you know, I think, that this is Carol Maxwell's slides, because all of these are Carol Maxwell's slides and not my own. I have to say my homepage in Mozilla, in Pebble, doesn't have a Highland Cow in it. So we spent a bit of time and money getting ready, and we started this project in earnest at the beginning of session 14-15 with the first launch day, and we repeated that again at the beginning of this session. We thought long and hard about how we would identify success or failure, and we looked at a number of criteria. One was take up by students, and that has been variable, and I think I'll come back and say a bit more time about that. Writing up all the workbooks, creating all the criteria, the rules for the scheme and so on, consumed a lot of time in that first session. So that was the session 13-14 session, and it was only in 14-15 that we were up and ready to run. Okay, Mandy, you're asking what sort of percentage of students took that up. We have, I think, one of the smallest law schools around. We've got 40 students in each year, and last year we had 9 students from stage 1. So it's a bit less than 25% took up the opportunity to start badges. It was a bit less at stage 2. Quite a lot of enthusiasm at stage 3 because students saw the advantage and realized that they would be applying for jobs fairly soon. And again, it was about 9 out of that particular cohort. And in 4th year, there was absolutely no take-up. So they're already focused on what they're going to do later. Completion rate for badges. I have to say Fiona and I were terribly disappointed because although 9 students in first year registered, we didn't see anything happening very quickly. And students told us in focus groups that they were so busy on their studies that they didn't really have time to do it. So where we find that students are engaged in badges, it tends to be over the Christmas holidays when there's a bit of downtime, but nearly everything that we've awarded to date has been because of work done by students over the summer, just to verify what they had done. And then it took a little longer to get those badges verified by our external verifier. So the students that completed in session 14-15 would complete typically at the beginning of September 15, about a year, and the badges weren't awarded until December because of delays in getting the external verifier on the system, trained on the system, and then to produce a report. So we didn't meet our quality standards that we'd set ourselves. The number of badges that have actually been completed, so this is group awards, is 5. So that means that students will have done the 4 sub-badges to get the group award, which is very disappointing. But I think it's not necessarily a failure because students are thinking about the process, they're thinking about the skills that they need to successfully compete at assessment centres and job interviews. And I think the better measure of success is the fact that students are able to succeed in the interviewing process and at assessment centres than they did previously. So to that extent, actually submitting the badge for verification may not matter if they've actually done the work and they've got the skill and they can produce the examples and behave in a way that is appreciated by prospective employers when they go for assessment. So numbers have not been a major success, but I think there is a slow burn here, and I think there's already evidence of students obtaining better quality employment. The second area where we've used badges isn't one that I've been responsible for. It was the enterprise unit at the university that developed an enterprise framework. It was tasked with developing an enterprise framework by senior management to allow students from any discipline at all to undertake badges to demonstrate skills that would help them set up businesses when they left university. Abertay's perhaps best known for its computer games and computer arts, and students here regularly set up businesses on graduating. So giving them some enterprise skills acquired out with their program was a key transferable skill and a key aim that the university had in mind. The director of the enterprise unit discussed what he wanted to do with me, and he was starting a year down the line, so he was able to take advantage of our experiences in establishing the system that we had for law. And these rolled out in September 15. What's interesting about these is that the director of the enterprise unit had left the university by this time to set up his own social enterprise, and all the staff in the enterprise unit left in October to join him in this new enterprise. That left badges up and running, and these were all transferred to the business school and have been running in another part of the business school because law is located as part of the business school. So these have been running quite successfully as well. They have issued badges. Here we've got 5 badges that they came up with. One's about the desire to change the world, setting up your own business, having the idea, surveying the marketplace, working out how it's going to be financed, and how you go and pitch that business to prospective funders. They've awarded some badges by Christmas, so it's not been as successful because of the disjunction with the winding up of the enterprise unit and the transfer to the business school, and some students simply exited the process at that stage. And I think they had over 20 students registered, and they've awarded, I think, 9 badges, or 9 group awards based on these badges, I should say. So it's been a reasonable success, but it's focused in a different way from ours, which is on reflective practice and the skills side of things. Again, we were able to encourage the enterprise team to adapt our workbooks, and they followed the model that we followed, so they used workbooks in PebblePad. The main intention here was to ensure that these enterprise skills again could be entered in the HERE 6.1, and that's going to be a success as well because there will be badges in there for those who've successfully completed. The question by the person who's running the badges there, though, is why have 6.1 in the HERE? Can we directly enter things into the HERE excuse me, with the permission of the registrar. And there's a debate going on within the business school about why badges, excuse me, I'm going to have a sip of water. I'll be back in a second. And I think we've reached the conclusion in the business school that the badges have a set of rules attached to them, they have values attached to them, and they've got to be worthwhile. We're not exactly convinced that everything in here is appropriate. So that's why we've decided to stick with the badges for next session as well. Okay, now what is Carol asking here? So the badges here have become best practice. We've used them in law, we're continuing to develop them in law, particularly relating to co-curricular and extracurricular activity. We're using them in enterprise, and we're now moving to using them in the PG Cert. So all new academic starts must complete the postgraduate certificate in education so that they can then get membership of the Higher Education Academy within their first year. And as an incentive to progress with that, we have been using badges to try and let those who are participating in the PG Cert monitor their performance and have a sense of achievement at completion of each small stage within the PG Cert. So there we're starting to use them as a more formal link to an academic process. Mandy, you're asking, do we use GradIntel or have our own institutional here? We use GradIntel. We looked at the marketplace and it seemed the easiest way to develop. So GradIntel is our here provider. Badges have the advantage, while they can appear on the here, they can also be linked elsewhere. And LinkedIn seems to be the favorite place at the moment for students to link them to. The numbers, I guess, are the concern. Why are more students not involved? But in some cases, they say it's taking them a long time to think about what they want to put in to demonstrate that they've got a particular skill, a particular experience that they want to demonstrate. So I think it's something of a slow burner. Okay, the technology that we used was Mozilla BadgeKit, and I'm not the technical person, and Carol is an educationalist rather than a completely technical person. So we downloaded the BadgeKit. One of the problems we had when we started in September 14 was that we didn't have the web server space. And it took Information Services 12 months to give us server space so that we could display our own badges. So it was in some ways quite fortunate that students didn't complete for about a year. And we had help because we discovered that the Mozilla BadgeKit is a developer kit that is not quite complete. And we had to get money, which came via the enterprise unit, to do some programming to allow us to have our own server here. And that's a picture of Robbie, who is an ethical hacking student here. And over the summer between his third year and fourth year, he got our server up and running and he got the BadgeKit to work. that took about 2 weeks of his summer internment with the Teaching Learning Enhancement team. Carol, what were you meaning here? I'm not quite sure. I think this is just an example of the published badges. Yeah, that's all. That's what can be linked. This is a mock-up of how the here is going to look with badges added to it. And this is something that Carol's put together. And we'll be seeing that on here going out this year in this particular format. So lastly, I guess we come to some of the resources that we've been using. Carol and I found the Open Badge Academy one of the best things to have a look at, and we can go there. And have a look at that. I don't know if you can see that. Sweep that over to this screen. I'm not sure what's happened.
Ken, it's Rob. We've still got your screen, or I've still got your screen. I haven't got the Open Badge Academy. We had it for a moment and then it went away.
Okay, thanks. I think I'll not try and do that with these hot links because it seems to be that every time I do that, things disappear. The Digital Me Badge Canvas is a fantastic tool for working out what you want to do with badges, and the rubric for Open Badges is a great template for actually evaluating where you are on the badge journey. And we're past the early stages. I don't think we've got a fully mature system yet. We've now got a stable system. We're able to award the badges. They can appear in the here. Did you have to do anything in collaboration with GradIntel? No, Robbie did the programming that allowed that to take place. So we were able to do that ourselves. And I think that's just about the end of Carol's slides. And there's a picture of Carol, and that's her page on the Open Badge Academy. I have no idea what she's doing there, but it looks interesting. So I'm afraid that these were Carol's slides, and I've just been talking over them, and I'm sure Carol will be able to assist on any of the technical sides.
Thank you very much.
I guess that's me finished, and if anyone's got any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Ken, before we just go to the general chat, there's a couple of things I think in people's comments that it might be good just to pick up. I'm just scrolling down. Do you want to say anything about why 2 of the law clinics were successful and the student one didn't take off in the way that you'd hoped? The answer might be no.
The answer, I think, was one of the drivers there was that students wanted to represent other students at disciplinary matters within the university itself, and we weren't allowed to do that.
Okay.
So the enthusiasm from the students involved in that project dissipated fairly quickly, and they reallocated themselves to other projects. It wasn't that the university was opposed to it. It was on advice from the university's insurers and lawyers that we weren't allowed to do that. So it is in abeyance at the moment. The idea now is that we will reorganize it so that it becomes a unit of the Students' Association, which has its own corporate existence and its own indemnity insurance, and I think that will be next session before we get round to doing that.
Okay, thank you. And there's a group of questions, I guess, and then I'll shut up. We'll unmute the microphones and people can ask you the questions that are on the tip of their tongue. But there's a group of questions and comments around ownership and management. So Barbara's raising the issue about badges linked only to institutional owned and managed systems. But you were saying, I think, that badges could be linked to LinkedIn profiles and so on. So
Yeah.
there's a kind of set of questions around that. Maybe you want to say a little bit about. And related to that, there's an issue which I think Paul raised, and he might want to say more about curious to how open badges are badged by institutions, so that not just anyone can issue them in the university's name. So I guess there are some gatekeeping functions which are related to your 10 hours type rule, which means that badges can be issued by anybody to anybody else, but they'll only find their way into an institutional document when they meet those criteria and they go through the university system. But that's my guess, so I'll shut up. You can tell us.
Well, the badges are obviously open, so they can be awarded or not awarded by anyone, and we've set ourselves up as an awarding authority in that sense. And yeah, it's got to go through the quality control system. So the rules that we set up about what will be a badge and what won't be a badge have to be adhered to, and we've got control of that server. So if it's not coming through us, it's not going on that server. But there's nothing to stop other parts of the university doing things. So, for example, I've had some discussions recently with the Students' Association, and they're keen to demonstrate in some positive way the contributions that students make to the various societies that are operated by the Students' Association, and the commitment that students make to the Student Representative Council and just the general well-being of the whole student centre. So they're now looking at awarding badges in this way to recognise contributions, but substantial contributions, because they're in the position that people are claiming to have joined societies, taken positions of leadership there, but not actually doing any work, but still having it on their CV. So they are now looking for a means of verifying and being able to verify to the public at large those contributions.
Yeah, and it's intended to be an achievement report rather than a get elected to something but don't do anything report.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And the one thing with the Student Centre, I should have said, is that the Students' Association is they're very keen that it doesn't have to appear on the here and that they can award it themselves.
Okay, so it's got that flexibility. Two very brief questions towards the end. Mandy's just asking about the process by which things, I guess, appear in 6.1 and whether there's a panel which reviews things. And Kath's asking really about students taking PebblePad with them and continuing to use it. I don't know whether you've got, or she said, is it too soon? So I don't know whether you've got any comments on either of those.
Okay, 6.1 is effectively controlled by the registrar, and there is a panel that looks at what goes into 6.1. The head of student services, the registrar, and academic curriculum managers, the 4 academic curriculum managers for the 4 schools, will determine the categories of things that can go into 6.1, but won't look at the details, and that's delegated down to registry staff. So even when I'm awarding a badge, I'll tell registry, I'll give them the link, and they'll do the rest.
Okay.
So that's that. On the technical side of things, do students take Pebble with them?
Yes.
One of the issues that we looked at as an institution in 13-14 was what sort of services do we provide to alumni? And one of the conclusions that we reached is that we won't never get money back from alumni unless we keep in touch with them and unless we provide them with some sort of service. So they get their university email for life and they get their PebblePad account for life. To date, there isn't that much evidence of students actively using their Pebble account after they've left. But one or two people have come back to me and said that they've used the examples that they used for the badges in applications they've made for jobs subsequently.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so if we've got questions that people just want to put verbally to Ken before we finish up, I'm going to mute my mic because I'm getting some feedback. Kath, can you unmute the mics and then people can pile in if they want to? We've got about 5 minutes or so. Folks, if you want to speak, if you can unmute your own mic, that would be helpful. Thanks.
Hi Ken, it's Paul Chin here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Paul.
Apologies if you sort of half answered my question earlier that I raised about sort of branding and quality. I wonder if I could just dig a little deeper with that. I like the framework you've developed and it's got real sort of quality and brand to it. So I really wanted to unpick that a bit more about, as you talked about the student service, wanting to engage with that. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if another department or another unit, school, faculty went down their own path to develop a framework. How do you think you could manage that so that you still have that sort of quality framework that sort of envelops the whole of the university rather than sort of having 1,000 flowers bloom on their own?
Abertay is a small institution. We've got 4,000 undergraduate students on campus. So there are only 4 schools. There's a very strong technology enhanced learning support team. Everybody knows who to contact. So I think we can control it in that sense because we're small enough to know what's going on and take control. And I'm one of the designated, well, I am the designated badge champion for this school within the university. And if anyone else is going down that route, they're being channeled to me, and I'm trying to share my experiences and my coffee with them, and try and lead them through that process.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Ken, I hope you get a badge for being badge champion.
Carol and I awarded ourselves some fake badges to start with, just to try out the system. So yeah.
Good stuff. Okay. Anything else that people want to pick up before we close? Okay, I think we'll take silence as being assent for the in terms of things moving on. Just to say, before everybody dives out to do something else, can I just thank Ken, thank Carol for the slides, and I hope her day has gone okay, and also that there will be a recording of this available, and we'll let you have the link to that so you can review the material that's been presented and practice what Ken has been talking about, which is to reflect on the material and maybe think about how you might make use of it. Thanks very much, Ken. Thanks everybody else, and we'll be here doing other webinars, and you're very welcome to those. Hope to hear some of you then, and in the meantime, take care, and we'll sign off now. Thanks ever so much. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Rob. Very much enjoyed it.
Really appreciate it. Excellent. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.